Alright, in this week's episode, something completely different. Let's go. Vroom! Yee. That's all we got. Okay, this is not going to be a talky video. It's about noon on Saturday, the 7th of December. A date that will live in infamy. Or something like that. Here we go. Dumbest setups I've ever seen, but okay. Alright, hammer. One carefully requisitioned drift punch. Unless you actually are supposed to take the forks apart. Let's just try that. Since they're all hand tight, it looks like anyway. Okay, so we're taking these out, which should then let the whole, I don't know, what do you call it, fork barrel drop down, I guess. There's always a chance that I'm just looking at it wrong and misunderstanding what I'm seeing, so that should fall down. Crooked enough. It's probably jamming. Here is your high-tech spring suspension. Yeah, I think I'm understanding this now. This is probably actually how you had to change a tire. Hey, okay. We're gonna make this easy on ourselves here. Unjam the jam. I was really trying to be nice to these guys, but I think this really was their plan. Disassemble the forks, take the nut off, slide the lower tube off, lay the parts out here in order, one for each side. Alright, opposite side, this is just where the lug nuts are. Now we can take the lug nuts off I just put back on. Okay, and then we just pull the whole thing out. This is our hub. It's got bearing on each end. The axle runs on the bearings, and this is just a piece of pipe with the bearings probably pressed in, and then they put bolts through it and welded the bolts in place so they don't fall out. Okay. Now obviously this tire is missing most of the tire, so we will save the wheel for the next person if they decide they want it. Maybe they can match the tire. These are marked Carlisle 21 by 12-8 ATV tires. 10 PSI max, not for highway service. the time I looked, I couldn't find an exact match, and I kind of gave up. And then later on, I realized these bolt patterns are 4-inch, 4-bolt pattern. So all I had to do is go find another wheel that would match that. Turns out, trailer wheels can be got in a 4-inch pattern. Oh, look at that, it actually fits. Now the bolts, or the nuts I have, are not proper lug bolts, lug nuts that have the tapered cone in them so that they lock into the wheel correctly. So that's, you know, a small problem, but we'll figure that out later. Just go get proper nuts. This will work for now. I'll put the other one on later. Okay, there was a spacer. There was, in this case, a couple flat washers. And then this thing, I'm going to put that bolt back in. Bolt goes through. And you put the nut back on. That'll keep the spring from falling out. Alright. I will probably not spend a lot of time doing a full resto mod on this. And then this just goes on to here, like so. We'll screw it up. Okay, same thing on this one. Nut. Oh, that might be backwards. I think I like this better. I'll put the washer there instead. Yeah, this isn't quite balanced yet. Probably doesn't matter, I'll just get them the same. There's a really good chance that somebody took this apart and somebody else put it back together, and then I came along, and so I got no idea how anything is supposed to be. Okay. Anyway, okay. Now I've got it loose so I can adjust it. I have no way to hold this in place and slide it up and see where the bolt hole is, right? But if I lower it back down, you can at least let gravity hold it in place for us. So, something like that. Hey, we're there. Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah, that bolt isn't long enough. You should have a little bit of bolt sticking out of the end of the nut. But for now, they did have a lock washer on the nut. I just found that in the wheelbarrow full of parts there. So we'll put that. So we'll hold the axle still. There we go. 100% better. That'll work. If nothing else, this will make it a whole lot easier to push it around the yard. And yeah, if you're wondering, this is completely dry rotted. There's major cracks in both of these. So I didn't really have any interest in putting them back on. Oh, look at that. Even got it up high enough. This is not going to properly center it up in the hole. They don't weigh much. I'll give them that. Changing tires takes too much time. Alright. Oh, that rolls so much easier with air in the tires. Oh yeah, that's beauty right there. That is art. Okay. The blue ATV trike already has a sprocket on it, which I believe is a 520 sprocket. If so, it'll be compatible with the chain and the sprockets on the KLR, which would make my life a whole lot simpler. I am honestly not in the mood to pick up that motor right now. And it's facing the opposite way. But I'm not 100% sure because I've never seen this thing put together. I don't even know what brand this is. It's got a differential in the middle. Oh, let me show you that. Which does not appear to be differentiating. That's a proper word, I'm sure. So, chain drive sprocket. Fortunately, the chain is offset to this side, so this probably will work. I'm assuming this is a differential, otherwise it's overly complicated for what it is. In theory, then, the differential should allow each wheel to turn at a different speed so you can turn. At the moment, that isn't happening because when I was pushing it around, it absolutely does not want to go in a turn. You know, I think this is probably a 520 sprocket, but it's got serious hooking on the teeth, so that's not good. It's also got wheel bearing or bearing-ish things, most of which are not really quite there. Yeah. So out here, there's a couple bolts that I probably put in that are holding this bearing cage in place. And the outboard side has one, and there should be one here and here. Down here, that's what this piece is probably supposed to be. But parts of it are missing. Here and here and here looks like could be motor mounts. Again, I don't know what they were thinking, you know, how they meant this to be. If so, if I could just take the motor off the motorcycle, make up a plate that'll mount to here, and then drill and match holes for the motor, I think we can fabricate that. the sprocket on the motor is on the back of the motor. So if we push the, put the sprocket in line with here, anywhere in here, push the motor forward, then we can get the motor to sit. But I'm thinking the way that the motor, or the way that the gas tank was set up on the motorcycle, see the gas tank in the background, the gas tank on the KLR is right above the motor, which is pretty common for most motorcycles. So then it can just gravity feed down into the carburetor. You don't need a fuel pump or anything. So that would put the motor here, gas tank here, and then probably seat would be somewhere forward, maybe around where the shocks are down here. And I don't see any holes for foot pegs, so I don't know where that would be. So if I just stand here, okay, we get something better than nothing. And with the motor over the rear wheel, we'd essentially have the same effect as like a Volkswagen Bug. They had an incredible traction in the snow because the motor was right over the rear wheels. Okay, that seemed to help them out a lot. So, plus you'd be sitting towards the back, so most of your weight is on the rear wheels, and the front wheel doesn't have very much weight on it, so it's easy to steer. The shape and size of the motor and where the motor mounts would be. The motor is sitting backwards right now. So here are two motor mount bolts, one of which was also the swing arm mount. And then on the front of the motor, we have here, is the front mount. So from here, it's not much different from these mounts. So I think we could make that work. The rest is details, where do you put the seat? What kind of seat do we want? Do we like the front forks at all? I mean, it's good enough for now. At least we've got a hub on the front that we can use to mount the same wheel as the back. That would be a giant pain in the butt to have to stop and change that front tire, having to take the forks completely apart. That's just crazy. Simple to manufacture, and most people don't change tires anyway, so maybe that would be good enough. This was probably made for something like a Briggs & Stratton motor. This wasn't made for a 650cc motor, right? So we're not supposed to go fast on this, I'm sure. It also has a really big rear sprocket, so that would gear it down quite a bit, which would also make sense on a smaller motor. The rest is just details. I could see I've got a bucket seat in the bus that would be about the right size. That's totally legit. No chance at all that I will hurt myself sitting on here. Because that has happened before. Oh, I have no idea if I'm in the shot. Also, my handlebars are ridiculously twisted. Alright, in this week's episode, something completely different. Let's go. Vroom! Yee! That's all we got. Yeah, that's perfect. This actually... That's actually not bad. If I just put myself a platform off of the front tube here, that's not bad. Motor would be ridiculously close, but yeah, I just need, or yeah, there we go, just put chopper pegs way out here. That's totally legit. Like and subscribe. Who knows where this is going to go? Probably the emergency room. There will be a waiver if anybody buys this, you're going to sign a waiver. Actually, yeah, that seat is just about the right height for the handlebars. So that gives me a good starting point. I think that's a good place to wrap it right there. We haven't hurt ourselves. That's important. Cut.